Okay, let's unpack this. We are jumping right into something major today. How AI is fundamentally reshaping account-based marketing, ABM.
That's right.
The sources we've been digging into are really highlighting that this isn't just a tweak. It feels like, the marketing tectonic plates are genuinely shifting.
Yeah, shifting plates is a good way to put it. We've pulled insights from, well, quite a collection of material. There's an article by Declan Mulkeen called Shifting Plates, How AI is Shaking Up ABM, plus data from recent reports, the 2025 State of Marketing AI, the 2025 State of ABM, and analysis from Gartner, Forrester, Optima B2B.
Right, and perspectives from places like India Times, ELPS Professional, the Economic Times, even DashDot features. It's coming from all angles.
Exactly.
And what seems really clear across all these is that AI is not some optional extra anymore, is it? It's becoming like core, non-negotiable for B2B marketing, especially ABM.
Absolutely. But what's fascinating, really, is this tension that keeps popping up in the sources. On one hand, you've got this incredible enthusiasm, huge excitement.
Like what sort of numbers are we talking?
Well, you see stats like 74% of marketers calling AI critically or very important for the next year. And get this, 88% are actually worried. They fear missing the boat on generative AI.
Okay, so massive buy-in, conceptual. People are saying, yes, we need this, but what's the other side of that tension?
Well, the other side is the reality on the ground. When you look at actual implementation, the value people feel they're getting today, it's a bit disconnected. Only about 34% of marketers say they're actually happy with the value they're extracting from AI right now.
Only a third. Wow. And what's stopping them?
The number one barrier, by a long shot, 62% cite this, is a lack of education and training. People just don't feel equipped.
So the will is there, but maybe the skill isn't quite caught up yet.
Precisely. And maybe hinting at bigger shifts coming, a huge 81% expect to replace their core ABM platforms within the next 24 months. That points to major upheaval in the tech stack, too.
Okay, so that sets up our mission for this deep dive, really. We need to get under the skin of that tension. We want to understand, where AI is already making waves in ABM.
Figure out what those key challenges, those fault lines are.
Get a sense of what the future might look like, the emerging landscape.
Maybe most importantly, identify the questions you need to be asking yourself right now to navigate all this. Because honestly, the sources suggest this market is primed for both, some amazing breakout successes and probably some very public flameouts.
Right, high stakes. Okay, let's start with today. Where is AI actually showing up and making a difference in ABM right now, based on what the sources are telling us?
Well, the first really big area that comes through loud and clear is speeding up the journey to insights, getting to the critical information you need just much, much faster.
Okay, insights faster. You mentioned large language models, LM, basically crunching research time, like turning a whole week of digging into maybe an afternoon. How's that working in practice?
It's really about tackling the sheer volume of data out there. The sources mention tools like Perplexity or dedicated research functions and things like ChatGPT or Gemini. They're being used to rapidly surface relevant stuff, analyst notes, earnings call transcripts.
Even harder to reach stuff.
Yeah, like digging through dark social threads, those private communities or Slack channels where real, candid conversations happen but are super hard to track manually. AI can sift through that much more effectively.
So the AI does the heavy lifting, finding, and filtering, and then platforms like ChatGPT, Claude, or maybe Notebook LM help make sense of it all, pull it together.
Exactly. They help summarize, contextualize, synthesize those findings. And this fundamentally changes the ABM practitioner's role, right? They're not just information mules anymore, spending days just pulling data points.
They can actually shift their focus.
Absolutely. They're freed up for the interpretation, the strategy, the application of that intelligence. There's a great quote from Josh Wheel in one piece. AI cuts through the noise, but it's the ABMer who gives it meaning.
I like that. AI finds the signal. The human decides what the signal means strategically.
Precisely.
That makes a lot of sense. AI for speed, humans for meaning. Okay, what's the next big impact area the sources highlight?
The push towards real personalization. Moving way beyond just the basic stuff.
You mean like the first name, emails?
Exactly. The sources are pretty blunt about it. That kind of tokenization is now just table stakes and ignorable. Buyers see right through it. It doesn't feel personal at all.
Yeah, that definitely resonates. My inbox is just crammed with those. So if that's dead, how are the sources saying AI enables genuinely better personalization? At scale, what's the approach?
It actually starts with something maybe a bit counterintuitive when we're talking AI. It starts with human strategy. The winning approach described is feeding the AI a human-written value proposition first. You define the core message, the strategic angle. Then you instruct the AI to tailor the copy, maybe suggest imagery, sequence the outreach. But not for individuals one by one. It's for clusters of accounts or contacts who share a really specific pain point or ambition.
Ah, okay. So it's not AI writing from scratch for everyone, but scaling the application of a human strategy to relevant groups based on shared needs. That feels much smarter.
It is. It moves from superficial tokens to hopefully deeply relevant messaging for defined segments. And I love how the sources kind of bring it back to the human touch, even amidst all this automation. There's that line.
The handwritten note one.
Yeah. When everything feels automated, a handwritten note lands like a sledgehammer. It feels like the more we automate the baseline stuff, the more impact those really deliberate, genuine human moments have. Is that a fair takeaway?
Absolutely. That contrast is key. AI gives you the scale to personalize meaningfully for segments, which frees up the ABMer to figure out where those high-impact, truly human touches will make the biggest difference, like that handwritten note or a quick, unscripted video.
Right. Using the freed up time strategically.
Well,
Okay, so faster insights, scaled strategic personalization. What else is AI doing in ABM today?
dynamic targeting is another big one. And platforms are using AI to basically orchestrate all these different signals.
So like intent data. What else?
Yeah, intent data, technographic info, what tech stacks accounts are using, firmographic data like industry, size, location. AI pulls it all together to tier accounts.
And dynamic means faster, more reactive. Exactly. That's the key shift. Instead of maybe tiering accounts once a year based on fairly static criteria, platforms, they mentioned Sixth Sense, Demand Base, Optimizely can use AI to reevaluate and update account tiers almost constantly, maybe weekly, based on all these incoming signals.
Wow, weekly account tiering. That's
Yeah.
the fundamental change in pace. It means ABM efforts can be incredibly responsive, almost real time, reacting to what accounts are actually doing.
It lets teams focus their energy where the buying signals are hottest right now. And the investment data backs this up. Apparently, 35.5% of marketers surveyed said predictive AI for pulling together all that intent data is their #1 investment priority for 2025. So the money's following that capability.
Makes sense. And the last area I mentioned for today was AI as a creative catalyst. How does that work?
Well, think about tools like Adobe's generative fill. That gets cited as an example. Features like that can dramatically cut down the time spent on really tedious tasks like complex image retouching or background removal, stuff that used to take hours.
And those saved hours go where?
Hopefully back into higher level creative work, concepting, strategic thinking, developing genuinely original ideas. It's automating the sort of production grunt work to free up the human creative spark.
But the sources also had some pretty sharp warnings about AI and creativity, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. Very important caveats. James Dignam is quoted with a great line, AI is an imitator, not an ideator.
Imitator, not ideator. Okay.
And Lucy Jones adds to that, saying something like, AI drafts, humans decide tone, nuance, and ethics. And that's crucial, right? AI can assist, it can automate parts of the process, generate drafts, but the strategic direction, the ethical calls, the unique brand voice, that still absolutely needs human judgment and oversight.
Okay, so AI is hitting insights, personalization, targeting, creativity, but always with that human layer for strategy, meaning, and ethics. That paints a pretty clear picture of the current tremors. So now, let's talk about where things might get rocky. Where are these AI fault lines forming? What are the big pressures and challenges the sources see?
Yeah, any big shift like this creates friction points. And the sources seem to cluster the main challenges for AI and ABM around 4 key fault lines, as they call them. You've got measurement fog, platform churn, the ongoing skills gap, and this growing ethical minefield.
Okay, let's take those one by one. Measurement fog. The source mentioned something like 40% of leaders can't actually define or measure the ROI from generative AI right now. That seems like a fundamental problem for getting backing.
It absolutely is. If you can't show the impact, how do you justify scaling up investment or get wider buy-in? It's tough. The strategic advice coming out of the sources is pretty clear. Start small and focus with your AI pilots. Anchor each pilot to one specific owner, define one really clear, measurable KPI, and crucially, get a baseline measurement before you start. Prove the value in a controlled way first.
Right, disciplined pilots, clear metrics. Makes sense. What about platform churn? That's that 81% planning to replace core ABM tech in the next couple of years that really jumped out at me.
It's pretty stark, isn't it? It just highlights how unstable and fast-moving the tech landscape is right now. Everyone's kind of scrambling, trying to figure out which tools have the right AI capabilities, how they integrate. The suggested response here is basically vigilance and flexibility. You need to constantly audit the feature roadmaps of your current platforms. Are they really innovating with AI in ways that help you? Or just slapping an AI label on things?
And avoiding getting stuck.
Exactly. Avoid getting locked into these huge monolithic platforms that might not be agile enough to let you plug in best-of-breed AI tools as they emerge from smaller, maybe more innovative vendors. Keep your options open.
Okay, that feels smart in a market that's still shaking out. Now, the skills gap. You mentioned this earlier as the #1 blocker. It keeps coming up.
It really does. It's apparently been called the top risk for 5 years, running in one report. That's 62% citing education gaps. That's huge. And over a third feeling unsure how to even properly use AI specifically for ABM tasks. The strategic response is pretty direct. Companies have to invest seriously in training.
Like formal training programs.
Yeah, the sources mention things like funding prompt craft boot camps, teaching people how to actually talk to these AI models effectively, and maybe certifying internal power users who can then champion best practices and help train their colleagues. You can't just drop the tech in and expect magic.
Right. It's not just about having the tools. It's making sure people know how to wield them effectively for ABM.
Okay.
Okay, and the last fault line. The ethical minefield. What are the specific concerns there as AI gets more integrated?
Well, as AI starts generating more external communications or processing more customer data, things like brand safety become paramount. You need guardrails.
Yeah.
The sources actually call poor governance the silent killer of AI velocity, because if people are unclear on the rules or worried about making a mistake,
They just slow down or avoid using the AI altogether.
exactly, it creates hesitancy. And again, echoing the skills gap point, lack of clear training and policy is cited as the #1 barrier to adoption for the 5th straight year in one study. It's a persistent problem.
So internal uncertainty can be as much of a break as external risks. What's the recommended strategic response then?
Be proactive. Don't wait for a problem. The advice is to build a cross-functional AI council now. Get marketing, legal, IT, maybe sales, compliance folks, get them all in a room together to establish clear guidelines, usage policies, and oversight before things go off the rails or confusion slows everything down.
Okay, so tackling measurement, platform churn, skills, and ethics head-on is critical. We've got the current state, the challenges. Let's look ahead now. What about the emerging contours? What does the future landscape potentially look like, according to these sources? What's next on the horizon for AI and ABM?
Yeah, there are some really interesting, maybe slightly futuristic sounding trends highlighted. One is the rise of what the sources call agentic workflows.
Agentic, what does that actually mean for an ABM team day to day?
Think of them as like autonomous mini CMOs or AI agents. These aren't just tools responding to one prompt. They're AI systems that can perform a whole sequence of tasks without constant human intervention.
Okay, like what kind of sequence?
Well, the sources describe them potentially triaging incoming buying signals, maybe drafting initial outreach plays tailored specifically to those signals, and then automatically routing the task or the draft to the right human or the right system for approval or the next step.
So the AI is handling more complex, multi-step processes autonomously.
That's the idea. And the human role shifts again, doesn't it? It becomes less about doing the steps and more about managing the system, setting the strategy, and crucially, arbitrating the exceptions, stepping in when something really weird or complex happens that the agent isn't programmed to handle.
And there's a prediction about the impact.
Yeah, Forrester has a pretty bold projection mentioned. They think agentic AI could actually double pipeline velocity for the companies that adopt it early, maybe by 2026. So potentially a huge operational efficiency gain.
Doubling pipeline velocity.
Yeah.
That's significant. Okay, what's another emerging trend they talk about?
Something called synthetic audiences.
Synthetic audiences. Okay, is that like creating fake people to test marketing on? That sounds a bit strange.
Heh. Not quite fake people, no. It's more about creating custom GPT-generated personas that are designed to simulate how real prospects might react. The key is, these models are trained on real data.
Like what data?
The source mentions training them on transcripts from actual customer and prospect interviews. So you build these detailed representative personas based on real insights, and then you use them internally.
Ah, I think I see. So you could feed your new messaging or a piece of content into this synthetic persona model. And get a simulated reaction from, say, your target CFO persona versus your target IT director persona before you actually send it out.
Exactly. It's like creating these internal feedback sandboxes. You can test ideas, refine positioning, see how different messages might land with different stakeholders, all internally before it ever goes public. The thinking is this could become a standard quality assurance step, a way to kind of de-risk your content and strategy using AI simulation.
That's actually really clever. A
Yeah.
way to pressure test ideas without annoying real prospects.
Okay.
Okay, what else is emerging?
Federated personalization. This builds on the idea that AI-generated communication is going to become much more common, coming towards brands too. Gartner has a prediction that by 2025, maybe 30% of all inbound communications to businesses will actually be written by AI agents.
Whoa, 30% of inbound.
Yeah.
Written by bots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a lot of automated messages
Yeah.
potentially hitting companies.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for marketers sending messages out into that kind of environment? How do you stand out?
Well, the implication is that trust and transparency become absolutely critical. To distinguish their communications, brands using AI will likely be forced to be much more upfront about it. They might need to clearly label messages, this part was AI assisted, or this was drafted by AI based on XYZ. They might need to explain the guardrails they use to keep the AI on track and offer really clear opt-outs or preference controls right there at the message level. Basically, buyers swimming in AI content will demand that transparency.
Okay, so transparency becomes a differentiator when AI comms are everywhere. And linked to that, the final emerging contour mentioned is this idea of craft as a scarcity. Tell me about that.
This feels really important as generative AI makes it super easy to just churn out vast amounts of content incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
What happens?
Information overload gets even worse.
Exactly. Buyers are going to get even better at filtering. They'll be actively looking for signals of real quality, real originality, genuine value amidst all the AI-generated noise.
So in a world drowning in easy-to-make content, what becomes the rare, valuable thing? What stands out?
The source argues that perspective becomes the next marketing luxury item. Genuine, unique, insightful perspective.
Perspective. Why perspective specifically? Can't AI just generate that too?
Well, the argument is, no, not really. While large language models are amazing at remixing existing information, finding patterns in data from the past, they don't witness things. They don't have lived experience. They can't originate a truly new point of view based on seeing something unfold in the real world or having a unique insight about the future. They remix the past.
Okay.
So as AI floods the channels with well-written summaries and remixes of existing ideas, content that offers that genuine, hard-won, human-derived perspective, unique insights, real experience, maybe a controversial but well-argued opinion that will stand out. It becomes scarce and therefore valuable. It ties back to that idea of the human giving the AI-processed insight its meaning and strategic value.
That's a powerful thought. Craft and perspective is the new differentiator. Okay, so we've journeyed from today's tremors through the fault lines into these emerging contours. This all points towards needing a really clear strategy, right? The source provides 6 critical questions to help organizations kind of stress test your strategy as they navigate this AI sprint. Where do we start with those?
Yeah, these 6 questions are really designed to push teams beyond just, playing around with AI tools and towards embedding them strategically into their ABM approach. The first one is pretty fundamental. Can we articulate one AI metric that actually matters to the board or to leadership?
And that ties back to the measurement fog we talked about, right? Where over 40% of leaders can't define or measure the impact today. That's obviously a huge hurdle for getting executive support more budget.
Exactly. Your leadership probably gets that AI can automate stuff, maybe save time, but they need to see the link. How does this AI initiative connect clearly to business outcomes, especially revenue? So focusing on one key metric that shows that line of sight to business value is absolutely essential for proving ROI and getting continued buy-in.
Okay, one clear metric that matters upstairs. Question 2. Identify 10% of manual ABM tasks that an AI agent could realistically own by, say, Q4 2025.
This one's about getting practical and looking for significant efficiency wins, not just tinkering. We heard that 82% of teams chase AI to save time, but often the pilot projects just nibble at the edges, right?
Okay.
Automating tiny little things that don't really move the needle. This question forces you to think bigger. What are the substantial chunks of manual work research, list building, initial drafting, reporting that AI could genuinely take over to free up significant human capacity?
Aiming for real impact, not just marginal gains. Okay, question 3. Do we have a brand-safe prompt library?
Yeah, this connects directly to that ethical minefield and the governance challenge. We know lack of training and clear policy is a huge barrier. Having a curated library of pre-approved, brand-safe prompts means that when your team does use generative AI for content or communications, they're working within established guardrails.
So it ensures consistency and safety.
Right. Consistent brand voice aligns with ethical guidelines, meets legal requirements. It builds confidence internally and reduces the risk of costly mistakes. It's a foundational piece of governance.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, question 4 is interesting. Where will a handcrafted human touch create disproportionate impact?
This goes back to our personalization discussion and craft as scarcity. In a world increasingly full of automated messages, those genuine, personal human touches become incredibly powerful. They stand out. AI should be used to scale the frameworks, the targeting, the segmentation, the initial outreach structure.
But humans need to pinpoint where their specific intervention will matter most.
Precisely. Where will that thoughtful handwritten note or that quick unscripted Loom video showing you understand their specific problem, or maybe even that surprise desk drop, where will that have the biggest impact on conversion or relationship building? You need to strategically map out those high leverage human moments.
Okay, using the human touch surgically for maximum effect. Question 5. What proof points distinguish our human point of view from just AI paraphrase?
This tackles that craft is scarcity idea head on. LLMs, as we said, are remixing the past based on their training data. They don't see the future, they don't have unique experiences. That tension, we started with huge enthusiasm for AI, but low perceived value delivery so far. That's a perfect recipe for everyone just generating loads of generic copy-paste content that all sounds the same.
So you need to be able to articulate what makes your insight different.
Yes. What makes your company's perspective, your content, your advice uniquely human? Is it based on proprietary data, real-world customer interactions, years of specific experience, foresight? You need to clearly define and prove why your POV isn't just something an AI could have scraped together.
Highlighting the human differentiator. Okay, and the final question, number 6. How will we train or retrain teams whose roles are about to fundamentally morph?
And we come full circle back to that persistent skills gap. The sources clearly show this tension. People are excited about AI, but their practical skills for using it effectively in ABM are often lagging behind. We saw the stats. 62% cite education gaps. Over 30% feel unsure how to optimize AI for ABM. Roles are changing, workflows are changing. Organizations need a proactive, continuous plan for training and upskilling. It's not a one-off workshop. It's about enabling teams to evolve with the technology.
Okay, those 6 questions definitely provide a robust framework for any organization trying to get its arms around AI and ABM right now. Let's try and bring all these threads together in this final section. Steering the plate shift, velocity with vision. What's the core takeaway here?
Well, I think the synthesizing message from all these sources is that the real promise of AI for account-based marketing isn't, ubiquity, like AI doing everything or some kind of perfect tech utopia. It's really about leverage.
Leverage, meaning?
Meaning it gives you the capacity to do more, to do it faster, to operate at a scale that just wasn't possible before. That's the power.
But that leverage alone isn't the whole story, is it? The sources seem to caution against just flipping the AI switch to maximum output.
No, absolutely not. Leverage by itself isn't enough. The sources keep coming back to this critical need for balance. Leverage without empathy. That just creates noise. You can churn out mountains of technically personalized content, but if it's generic, if it lacks real human understanding of the account's context or needs, it just adds to the digital clutter people are already drowning in.
Right. And the flip side, empathy without leverage means you might have great insights and relationships, but you're stuck doing everything manually, trying to scale personalization by hand, which just stalls growth. You can't reach enough accounts effectively.
Exactly. The source material suggests the real craft isn't finding that balance. It's about marrying the scale and efficiency of AI with genuine human empathy, strategic perspective, and critical oversight. Those organizations, those teams who really master finding that sweet spot, those are the ones who will successfully turn AI from just another shiny object into a truly powerful strategic ally for their ABM efforts.
And there's a warning for those who don't find that balance.
Yeah, the warning is pretty stark. They risk, as the article puts it, shipping at the speed of irrelevance.
Ouch. Shipping at the speed of irrelevance.
Yeah, you might be moving fast, producing a lot of stuff quickly thanks to AI, but if it lacks that essential human layer, the empathy, the unique perspective, the strategic relevance, it's just going to be ignored. Busy buyers won't even notice it. It's fast, but ultimately irrelevant.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive then, We've explored how AI is already making its mark on ABM, speeding up insights, enabling more strategic personalization at scale, allowing for dynamic targeting, even assisting the creative process. But it's not without its hurdles, significant challenges around actually measuring the impact, dealing with a fast-changing tech landscape, closing that persistent skills gap, and navigating the ethical considerations. Looking forward, the sources paint a picture of potentially transformative trends like agentic workflows taking over tasks, using synthetic audiences for internal testing, and needing much greater transparency through federated personalization. And crucially, in this AI-accelerated world, genuine human craft and unique perspective become even more valuable differentiators. Successfully navigating this plate shift, as the sources frame it, means asking those tough strategic questions about metrics, automation targets, governance, the role of the human touch, defining your unique POV, and, critically, investing in your people's skills.
It really boils down to finding that essential equilibrium, doesn't it? Between the powerful capabilities of the technology and the indispensable value of human connection, empathy, and strategic thinking. The choice, strategically, isn't if you should integrate AI into ABM, but how you do it. How do you deploy it in a way that truly enhances ABM's fundamental goal, which is building deep, relevant, valuable relationships with your most important accounts? Steering this shift successfully requires both velocity, you can't afford to stand still, but also, crucially, vision. A clear human-centric vision for how AI will serve your strategy, not dictate it.
And that really leaves us with that final, quite provocative thought from the source material to mull over. The choice, as ever, is human. So what does that actually mean for your approach to AI and marketing? Something to really chew on as you navigate these shifting plates yourself.